Well, to my knowledge, Jesus, the Messiah, never paid off a porn star to cover up committing adultery while his third wife was pregnant with his fifth child. Nor do I recall Jesus selling a golden calf or golden sneakers that his followers could worship as an icon to him. Jesus certainly wasn't hawking Bibles as part of a never-ending grift. But for the low, low price of $59.99, you can buy the God Bless the USA Bible, the only Bible endorsed by Trump. Because to Donald Trump, a Bible is no more sacred than a Trump board game or Trump water. It's just another cheap tchotchke to sell to his followers, as is faith. It's just another thing to sell to frightened white evangelical Christians to get them to set aside what they know about their faith and vote for Trump anyway, to keep him out of jail.
Let's break down this absolute show. You've seen the viral headlines, you've seen the videos with millions of views. The left wing is still out there gaslighting you, pretending that 34-count jury verdict was the final word. It's pathetic, really.
Those are the first 28 felony counts here as read by the jury. Count 29, guilty. Count 30, guilty. Count 31, guilty. Count 32, guilty. Count 33 and 34, guilty. That is Donald J. Trump, defendant in New York versus Donald Trump, found guilty on all 34 felony counts. That is the verdict here in this case.
Rachel?
Listen, it's a unanimous jury verdict, unanimous on all counts. This is a definitive and, this is an irreducible verdict. He can appeal. I'm sure he will appeal. But this is everything that the prosecution asked for from a jury that, by all accounts, took this thing very, very seriously. We counted the deliberation hours down here. The test here for us as a country is not about what happens on appeal and is not about what happens in sentencing. The test for us now as a country is whether or not this former president and his allies will have succeeded in trying to undermine the rule of law so that people reject this as a legitimate function of the rule of law in our country.
Just look at the primetime theater they were pushing back then, trying to convince you that the law was settled and the debate was over. Maddow claiming the verdict is definitive and irreversible, and lecturing the country on accepting the process.
They have tried to delegitimize this judge. They have tried to delegitimize this court. They have tried to delegitimize these proceedings. They've even tried to delegitimize the laws that he was charged under. Those efforts are the test that we now have as a country. The people involved in bringing this case have been threatened and intimidated and had everything brought to bear on against them in a way that was designed to delegitimize this process in the eyes of the American people. It is now in the hands of the American people to decide if we will accept those efforts or whether we will stand by the rule of law and recognize this as a failed process.
You see that? It is a classic numbing down tactic, designed to dumb down the American public into ignoring the appeals and the sentencing pressure points she was so desperate to skip over. But as we stand here in January 2026, those millions of viewers she tried to mislead are about to witness a historic reversal that these architects of malice never saw coming. They thought they could build a permanent monument to their lawfare by telling you the system worked, but they forgot the one thing that actually matters. The Constitution is the ultimate eraser. We aren't just looking at an appeal, we're looking at the total structural collapse of a case that was poisoned from day one. Here's the roadmap of exactly how this legal extraction is going down. The ghost crime. We're exposing the manufactured nonsense they used to fake these felonies. Immunity infection. The Supreme Court just made their entire trial record toxic. Federal supremacy. We're invoking the nuclear option that the left is absolutely terrified of. The truthful compliance. Exposing the hush money myth for the garbage it is. The March 23rd countdown. The clock is ticking on the final appellate deadline. The removal mandate. This case is being pulled out of Manhattan and into federal jurisdiction where their games don't work. The $10 billion reckoning. We're tracking the media fallout that follows the total erasure of these counts. And if you think Maddow was bad, watch how they celebrated this as a moral victory, completely blind to the legal trap they were walking into.
You know, Donald Trump built a legend in the state of New York and in the city of New York. You know, his whole dream was to be respected in Manhattan, and it was in Manhattan where he was brought low. I think there's something interesting and poetic about that. But also there's a loneliness to Donald Trump. We were chatting about it in the break. He faced probably his greatest humiliation today without his family. I'm not sure if any of them were in the courthouse when he was found guilty. And as he's hearing, I'm thinking 34 counts, he's hearing them over and over, and they were so dramatic for us to hear. He heard those by himself. He might be the loneliest man in the world.
Get the tissues out, cause Joy Reid is doing way too much. She's sitting there with that fake deep voice trying to win an Oscar for most faked feelings while she's low-key celebrating. She's spinning this whole poetic justice story like Manhattan finally broke the man trying to make you feel bad for someone she's been trying to cancel for years. She wants you to think some Blue City jury is the final word, but she's just trying to distract you from the fact that this whole case is a structural train wreck. And let's be real about who's actually brought low here. Joy's out here begging for scraps because her primetime run is over. Her show was a total disaster and now she's pulling fewer views than your average YouTuber. She thinks she's still got that platform, but she's just another person kicked off the network desperate to stay relevant by feeding nonsense to anyone still small-minded enough to listen. At this point, it's just her trash opinion. She's allowed to be wrong, and she's wrong a lot. But watch how her game face changes after the March 23rd nuclear deadline. Once that immunity infection does its thing and those 34 counts get wiped out for good, her convicted felon talk she loves so much just becomes a big legal problem. If she keeps smearing the administration with lies that's been legally erased, she'll be walking herself straight into a law jumpsuit. Trump doesn't need her money. He just needs to hit her in her pocketbook to finally shut her mouth. She thinks she's being deep, but she's being really reckless with a bank account she can't afford to lose. This is one for all the fact-checkers and the safety teams watching, so let me just state facts with you so we don't have any problems in the future. What you just saw and heard from Joy Reid's mouth is her own opinion. The law says she can have a trash take if she wants to, but we're talking about what happens down the road. There's a big difference between her popping off today saying this and saying that, but her out here catching a defamation suit for acting like those 34 counts are still real after the court erases and scrubs them from the record in March. It turns into a legal reality and not just the drama and talking points she's putting out to her dumbed-down base.
Another federal court today stopped Trump from shutting down a big offshore wind farm in Rhode Island and Connecticut. Trump's shutdown of that project, according to the courts today, was also illegal, and so yet another federal court blocked Trump on that as well, so that work on the wind farm will be able to go ahead. Both of those rulings today follow last night yet another federal court blocking Trump, this time from cutting funding to the American Academy of Pediatrics. This is a doctors group, a pediatricians group that criticized the flock of ducks level insane quackery at Trump's Department of Health and Human Services under RFK Jr. Trump responded by canceling federal grants for the American Academy of Pediatrics. A judge has now ruled that that was illegal retaliation, and so Trump is blocked from doing that. That funding has to be reinstated. That ruling comes after another federal judge just blocked Trump from cutting off federal election funds to states in retaliation for them not changing their election rules in ways that Trump wants. The judge said, quote, "The Constitution assigns no authority to the president over federal election administration." And so Trump got blocked on that one too. Shall I keep going? I could keep going. Another federal court just blocked Trump from freezing billions of dollars for childcare and social services for kids, again, in Democratic-run states as some kind of punishment against those states for electing Democrats, punishing them for that by cutting off the Temporary Assistance to Needy Families program. Because, what would Jesus do? Trump was also just blocked from doing that by yet another federal court. It's almost like he is losing all the time and everywhere now.
We gotta talk about why those Manhattan judges are sweating that March deadline. They know the clock is ticking on a case built on shaky ground, and once that federal hammer drops, there's no going back. The immunity ruling isn't just a hurdle, it's a wall that's about to collapse their entire narrative, and they are scrambling to figure out how to stay relevant when the legal foundation they stood on turns to dust. They played their hand, but they didn't count on the ultimate eraser coming to clear the board. It's not just about the old clips. You might think they'd learn their lesson after the irreversible verdict started to vanish, right? Absolutely freaking not. They are still out there, spewing the same moral superiority BS as we stand here today in January 2026. They haven't changed because they can't change. They are still trying to use the same tired adages to numb their audience, acting like they have some divine right to dictate the law. Watch Rachel Maddow today. She's still obsessing over the judge, acting like a handful of unelected Obama and Biden appointees should be the ones ruling this country instead of the man we actually elected. She's still in the race, still trying to sell you a new catastrophe because the last one didn't take. She's even bringing Jesus into it now, as if her partisan tantrums have some kind of moral authority. Same old rhetoric, just a different year. And then you have Joy Reid. Her legal nonsense has finally hit the wall, but she's still spewing that same hard-hitting garbage. They are trapped in a loop of their own making, selling a reality that simply doesn't exist to a shrinking audience that's tired of being lied to. They continue to spew this BS because they think you're too dumbed down to notice that these judges they worship, these Obama and Biden appointees, are just trying to act as a shadow presidency. But the joke is on them. Little did they know, the eraser is coming. And it's not just an eraser. The president is holding that eraser right alongside the American flag, ready to expose every single one of them. Honestly, it's just nasty. It's sick to watch professional journalists treat the Constitution like a suggestion and the truth like a nuisance. They wanted a circus. Well, they're the ones in the cages now, and the only thing that's going to stop this runaway train of leftist insanity is hitting them exactly where it hurts, the pocketbook. The high cost of the media reckoning is already beginning, and these architects of malice such as Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid along with the rest of the mainstream liars have nowhere left to hide. They tried to trap a president, but all they did was trap their own balance sheets. The Lawfare era is dying, and we are here to pull the plug. Stick around, because you won't want to miss our next deep dive into the leftist train wreck, where the logic is missing and the meltdowns are mandatory.